What happens when a black woman, holding a verified first-class ticket, is treated like a trespasser in the airport she partly owns by the very airline she helped build? They thought she would stay silent. They thought she would disappear quietly. They were wrong. The lobby at Westbridge International Airport stirred with early morning motion. Soft overhead lights flickered to life as a wave of business travelers filtered through Terminal 3. It was just past 6. The air still held the crispness of night, clinging faintly to briefcases and pressed collars. Simone Carter walked through the sliding doors with calm precision. Her steps were quiet, deliberate. A black wool coat fell to mid-calf, her posture upright. In one hand, a sleek briefcase. In the other, her passport and a confirmed first-class boarding pass to Geneva, seat 1A. She had done this hundreds of times. She moved toward the first-class check-in counter, bypassing the general boarding lanes with a glance that was neither proud nor expectant, just practical. The counter attendant, a young white man in his 20s, looked up without expression. He didn't greet her. He didn't reach for her documents. Instead, his eyes drifted down her coat, then up to meet hers for a brief second. His arm lifted firm, automatic. "Economy check-in is to the left, ma'am." Simone stopped just short of the counter. She held up her phone. "I'm flying first class," she said, calm and even, the screen displaying her digital pass. He didn't look at it. His arm remained extended. "Left lane, please." She didn't move. "This is my lane." He looked past her. Behind Simone, a man approached, white, mid-40s, navy blazer, no luggage. The same agent straightened slightly, dropped his hand and smiled. "Good morning, sir. First class?" he asked as he scanned the man's phone. The traveler nodded. "Geneva." The agent glanced at the screen. "Excellent. Would you like a water while you wait, still or sparkling?" Simone's phone was still in her hand. She said nothing. Without another word, she stepped away from the counter and made her way to the premium member kiosk off to the side. It recognized her QR code immediately. A second employee, older, focused, scanned her pass. "Ah, seat 1A, he said, tapping the screen. "That's one of our best." He handed her the printed ticket. No acknowledgement of what had happened 15 feet away. Just the quiet indifference of someone doing his job. Simone thanked him softly and turned toward the TSA checkpoint. The escalator ahead glowed faintly in the terminal light. Her grip on the boarding pass tightened slightly as she approached security, coat swaying at her sides. There were still 2 hours until departure. But something had already shifted, and the morning had only just begun. Simone moved past the TSA checkpoint without incident. The agent scanned her ID and pass, then waved her through with all the interest of someone checking groceries. No eye contact, no warmth, just another transaction. She repacked her laptop, slid her heels back on, and glanced up at the signs overhead. Gate C12. The lounge was just beyond the escalators. She took the elevator instead, quieter, less exposed, and stepped out into the hushed glow of the premium floor. A large sign read, "Orionis First Class Lounge Platinum Access Only." She approached the entrance, boarding pass in hand. The receptionist, a woman in a navy uniform with a gold pin at her collar, scanned the code. The screen blinked red. She frowned. "I'm sorry. This says you're not cleared for lounge access." Simone held her gaze. "Check again." The receptionist nodded, typed something manually, her brow furrowed deeper. "It must be a system glitch," she murmured. "Let me override it." It took 3 tries. When the door finally buzzed open, there was no apology, just a nod and a practiced smile. Simone stepped inside. The room was warm, muted, leather seating arranged in clusters, a quiet bar to one side. She made her way toward a seat near the window, pulled out her tablet, and refreshed the Geneva weather tab. Everything around her was designed to feel seamless, but something wasn't. She reached for her phone to check the updated boarding time. As she tapped into the Orionis app, a pop-up appeared. "Seating assigned. Please collect updated boarding pass at gate." Her brow knit slightly. That shouldn't have changed. She stood, gathered her belongings, and walked down the corridor toward gate C12. When she arrived, the terminal was half full, business travelers murmuring over emails, earbuds in, morning light bleeding through the windows. The digital screen above the gate read Flight 882 to Geneva on time. She stepped up to the self-service kiosk, tapped in her confirmation number, and scanned her credentials. A new boarding pass printed. Her eyes dropped to the seat assignment. 33B. Simone blinked. She tapped again. Same result. A middle seat near the back of the aircraft. Economy cabin. No legroom, no privacy, no explanation. She turned toward the service desk. No one stood behind it. The agent from earlier, Logan, his name tag had read, was gone. The replacements on shift didn't look up. To them, she was no longer a priority traveler, just another passenger with a printed problem. Simone stepped back from the machine. Her pulse had quickened, but her face showed nothing. This wasn't a glitch. She turned slowly and found a seating map posted near the corridor. Her new seat, row 33, was wedged between the rear lavatories, the kind of seat left open until no other options remained. She closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them again. The rerouting was precise, quiet, and entirely intentional. Her boarding class hadn't just been downgraded. Her identity within the system had shifted, from priority to invisible, and no one had said a word. Simone stood motionless for a few seconds, boarding pass still in hand. The number 33B stared back at her, printed in bold, without apology. She turned away from the kiosk and walked toward the Orionis Premier Lounge, her steps slower now. The same path she had taken just 30 minutes earlier. The same polished floors, the same etched glass. At the entrance, she presented her boarding pass again. This time, the scanner didn't even blink. The receptionist didn't greet her with confusion or curiosity, just a flat, measured tone. "Your access has been revoked, ma'am." Simone raised an eyebrow. "I didn't authorize any changes to my reservation." The woman tapped her screen, then shook her head. "It updated 16 minutes ago. Main cabin passengers don't have lounge privileges." She said it like reading a script. Simone didn't respond. She turned, calm but precise, and walked away. She didn't sit this time. Instead, she crossed to the terminal dining suite, a quiet corner where first-class passengers with dietary restrictions received pre-plated meals. She had submitted her meal request days in advance: grilled vegetables, lemon rice, no dairy, no gluten, no added sodium. Not a preference, a medical necessity. Her autoimmune condition made certain foods dangerous. The host behind the counter smiled politely, then scanned her new boarding pass. His smile faded. "I'm sorry, but you're not listed on today's catering sheet." Simone didn't blink. "I was listed this morning." The host gestured toward the concierge desk behind him. "Maybe they can assist." Before she could move, a man in a charcoal suit stepped up beside her and requested a vegan keto platter. The host nodded and handed it over. Simone looked at the meal, then at the host. "That's the one I ordered." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "It was specially reserved for another passenger." Simone stepped back. Her hands stayed steady, but her breath was thinner now. No food, no seat, no access. She walked to a small bench near the window and sat down, her bag resting beside her. She unlocked her phone and pulled up her original confirmation email, scrolling to the meal request. Confirmed. But that confirmation no longer meant anything. Across her profile, something or someone was stripping away every entitlement she had booked, paid for, and verified. Quietly. Systematically. No red flags, no angry voices. Just a subtle, near-perfect erasure. She refreshed her email inbox. Nothing. No seat reassignment notice. No boarding change. No dietary adjustment alert. Only silence. Simone leaned back, eyes scanning the terminal. Nothing about this was impulsive. Nothing random. Each missing privilege was another thread pulled from a fabric meant to hold her in place. And they weren't done yet. She closed the email, opened her calendar, and stared at her schedule for Geneva. Investor meetings, due diligence prep, 3 presentations lined up. She wasn't just traveling, she was representing something far bigger than herself. But here, in this terminal, surrounded by glass and smiles, someone had decided she no longer needed to be seen. And the system? It was happy to comply. Simone remained seated for several minutes, watching the terminal breathe around her. Rolling suitcases, clacking heels, soft boarding calls over the speaker. She sipped from her water bottle and glanced once more at her itinerary. The Geneva meetings would begin in less than 18 hours. She still had time. But something had shifted in the space around her. A man in a security vest had passed by twice in 5 minutes. Not unusual. But the second time, he'd slowed down, adjusted the radio clip to his shoulder, and looked at her not casually, but with studied interest. Simone didn't react. She closed her tablet and rose from the bench, planning to head toward the claims desk. Her carry-on had been with her since check-in, but a lingering unease pressed against her chest. She needed to see it. As she rounded the corridor past gate C14, The same security officer from earlier stepped into her path. "Ms. Carter," he said with the tone that tried to sound friendly, but was far too rehearsed. "We've received a report about your carry-on." Simone met his eyes, unblinking. "What kind of report?" "Apparently it exceeded regulation dimensions at the gate. It's been rerouted to checked baggage, just a precaution." Her jaw tightened. "That bag cleared security. I've had it with me the entire time." He shrugged. "Sometimes our baggage team makes quick calls to keep the boarding process smooth. It's already been sent down." "You don't even know which flight I'm on," she said calmly. "How do you know where it went?" He hesitated just enough. "We're doing what's in the best interest of all passengers," he replied, his words hollow. Simone stepped past him without comment, her strides measured. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show her frustration. But the pressure was mounting beneath her silence. She returned to the main security checkpoint. This time, the mood changed the moment she stepped into view. A TSA agent glanced up sharply, then approached her like she'd tripped an invisible alarm. "Can I help you?" he asked, clipped. "My name is Simone Carter," she answered evenly. "A staff member told me my carry-on was taken from me for being oversized. I'm trying to confirm where it is." "Did you get a tag?" "No." "Then there's no way to trace it." He turned away. She didn't move. Two other agents standing nearby whispered to each other, then glanced over. Simone walked toward the claims desk instead. But before she could reach it, another voice called out behind her, female, sharp, officious. "Ms. Carter?" She turned. A woman in a fitted Orionis uniform approached, flanked by a second employee holding a slim black pouch. The woman tapped her tablet, then spoke. "We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding an item in your possession earlier." Simone's expression didn't change. "What item?" "A Patek Philippe wristwatch, platinum casing. The serial number doesn't match our merchandise database." Simone inhaled slowly. "You're accusing me of theft?" "We're not accusing," the woman said quickly. "We're simply verifying authenticity. It's standard protocol when an item raises concern." "Raises concern? From whom?" Silence. Simone stepped forward. "That watch is personal property, insured, documented, and none of your business." The man beside the woman stepped up. "We'll need to inspect it now." "No. Then we'll need to escalate to security." "Do it," Simone said coldly. They didn't expect that. Neither moved. People nearby had started to glance up, curious but cautious. One man angled his laptop to record discreetly. Two teenagers whispered behind a magazine. Simone opened the pouch herself, pulled out the watch, and held it out not to surrender it, but to make a point. "Serial numbers engraved," she said evenly. "If you knew what you were looking at, you wouldn't need to ask." The woman took a hesitant step forward, then stopped. "We'll log this as resolved," she said quietly. "Don't log anything," Simone replied. "Log your apologies." She returned the watch to her bag and walked away. No smile, no threat. But from that moment on, every eye that landed on her shifted, not with curiosity, not with respect, but with suspicion. And she hadn't even boarded the plane. Simone made her way back toward Gate C-12, passing travelers who moved in practiced rhythms, boarding calls, quiet conversations, the rustle of newspapers. Her body felt calm, but beneath the surface, something had shifted. The rhythm no longer included her. She stopped near a wall outlet and took an open seat, carefully plugging in her phone and charger. Her tablet rested on her lap, still locked. She needed to conserve battery. There was still no food, no clarity, and no carry-on in sight. A minute passed, then two. She unlocked her device and opened her calendar. Before she could finish reading the itinerary, a voice approached from behind. "Ma'am," a young male airline staffer said, standing slightly off to her right, clipboard in hand. "I'm going to have to ask you to move." Simone looked up slowly. "Excuse me?" "That seat's marked for priority business travelers." She glanced around. "There's no signage. No rope, no posted restriction." He shrugged. "We've had internal updates." Her voice was cool. "Is that your explanation?" "I'm just doing what my lead told me." Simone didn't argue. She unplugged her charger without a word and moved to a bench closer to the windows. The outlet there was broken. The armrest was sticky. No one sat beside her. She didn't reopen her tablet. Instead, she stared toward the gate, her thoughts circling tighter, not about what had happened, but about how it was happening. She had crossed no line, raised no voice. Yet she had been marked not by mistake, but by intent. Somewhere behind the system's smile, someone had pulled a lever. A cart rolled past offering refreshments, juice boxes, protein bars, bottles of water. The employee, young, clean-cut, polite, moved row by row, offering each traveler a choice. He skipped Simone completely. She raised a hand slightly. "Could I get a bottle of water?" The cart slowed. The employee hesitated, checked his clipboard, then glanced at her. "What's your name?" "Simone Carter." He scanned his list, frowned faintly. "You're not on the registered priority list." Simone kept her tone even. "Water isn't a priority item. It's basic hospitality." He leaned in slightly, voice quieter. "We've had a few incidents with disruptive passengers recently. Management's asked us to be selective." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting I've been disruptive?" "I didn't say that," he replied quickly. "Just following instructions." "Whose instructions?" He didn't answer, just gave a tight, shallow smile and continued pushing the cart forward. She watched him go. Across from her, a middle-aged man in cargo shorts leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, then muttered just loud enough, "Always a problem, huh?" His wife nudged him gently but said nothing. Simone heard it. Everyone nearby did. No one spoke. Her phone vibrated a message from her assistant confirming hotel transfers and printed briefing packets in Geneva. She stared at the message, then locked her phone. She wasn't near Geneva. She wasn't near boarding. She was sitting in the middle of a terminal that had decided, quietly but fully, she didn't belong here anymore. Across the room, behind a help desk, a gate agent whispered into a headset, "Tag her. Code 37C. Special attention. Flag for behavior." Simone didn't hear it, but she felt it. In the way glances began to change. In how staff checked their screens before they addressed her and adjusted their tone after. She hadn't just been moved. She'd been rewritten. Not as a passenger, but as a problem. Simone sat alone near a service corridor, one row removed from the main gate. The outlets didn't work. The chairs were stiff. No one else sat in this corner. Whether by design or by instinct, people avoided proximity. She had become a center of gravity no one wanted to be pulled into. 10 feet away, a ground staff member glanced in her direction, then looked down quickly. Another, pushing an empty wheelchair, changed course to avoid passing her line of sight. It wasn't overt. It didn't have to be. From the moment her name had been flagged, the system no longer treated her like a client. It treated her like an error, something to be routed around, smoothed over, quietly managed. She reached into her bag and pulled out a disinfecting wipe, cleaning the armrest without thought. Her movements were precise, almost mechanical. Behind her stillness, her mind ran sharp. This wasn't about a seat, or a meal, or even a boarding pass. It was about classification. Whatever version of her had once been visible first class, platinum, verified was no longer being recognized. It wasn't rejection. It was erasure. She glanced toward the digital display overhead. Flight 882 on time. But her name was no longer among the priority standby list. Even the trace of her earlier reservation seat 1A had disappeared like it had never existed. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She didn't make a call. Not yet. She walked slowly to a vending machine. Her card was declined twice. At the counter near the gate, a fridge held small bottles of water labeled "reserved for first-class passengers." She reached for one. "Ma'am, those aren't for general boarding," a clerk said, stepping in. Simone nodded once and walked away. No water, no apology, no seat to sit in that wasn't sticky or broken. The air felt denser now. Not hot, not cold, just watchful. She returned to her corner, only to find that the spot had been taken by a mother and child. When Simone stood beside them, the mother shifted, pulling her child closer, as if Simone's presence somehow disrupted their space. She said nothing. Instead, she moved again, this time closer to the windows. Across the terminal, she caught sight of Logan Pierce. He stood near a kiosk, arms folded, talking into an earpiece with an air of satisfaction. His gaze swept the gate area. When it passed over her, he didn't flinch, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge. He just looked straight through her. Simone didn't lower her eyes. Not this time. She met his gaze and held it calm, unflinching until he finally turned away. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound folder. Inside were documents, data, contingency protocols, not for today's flight but for a different kind of operation. She closed it quietly, slid it back inside her bag, and rested both hands on her knees. She wasn't being delayed. She was being disqualified. Systematically, professionally, quietly. But they'd underestimated something Simone Carter wasn't built to disappear, and she wasn't finished yet. The sun had risen higher now, casting long lines of gold across the terminal floor. Travelers shuffled past in waves, checking screens, adjusting jackets, pulling tickets. The world moved on, but Simone sat still, not out of resignation, out of calculation. Across the gate, Logan Pierce stood near the boarding podium, clipboard in hand, issuing soft instructions to two junior agents. The officers stationed near him, arms folded, eyes alert, were positioned just close enough to appear casual, just far enough to intervene if she moved out of place. But Simone had no intention of making a scene. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and retrieved her phone. She didn't scroll, didn't hesitate. She tapped one number, a direct line, used rarely and only when necessary. The call connected after one ring. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't explain. She simply said two words. "It's time." On the other end, a voice replied, clear, professional, without surprise. "Understood. Activating position." No questions, no delay. The line went silent. Simone lowered the phone and set it gently beside her. From the outside, she looked unchanged, calm, unbothered, just another passenger waiting on a delayed flight. But beneath the stillness, something had shifted. The weight of control had returned to her palm. Across the airport network, the first ripple triggered a secured asset recall request from a global equity fund based in Zurich. Less than 30 seconds later, a second command followed. Freeze all pending negotiations between Nexus Holdings and Orionis Airways. In under a minute, a portfolio worth over $615 million began to unravel. Back at the executive floor, emails pinged like falling dominoes. Compliance officers opened encrypted files. Red flags lit up across internal dashboards. And the system that had spent the past 4 hours trying to erase Simone Carter began to recognize her again, but too late. She stood, smoothed her coat, and walked toward the nearest Orionis service desk. The woman behind the counter was young, cheerful in that surface-deep customer service way. She looked up and offered a smile that faded the moment Simone placed a manila folder on the counter. "I need you to deliver this to Mr. Gareth Whitmore, Vice President of International Operations. It's urgent. Confirm delivery." The agent blinked. "Aye, of course. May I ask what it's regarding?" Simone leaned in slightly. "It contains 3 months of internal audit logs, employee conduct records, unreported incident memos, all tied to gate operations at 5 U.S. terminals, including this one." The woman's face drained of color. "If it's not acknowledged in 15 minutes, Simone added, "it goes public." She stepped back, leaving the folder behind. Across the terminal, a team of executives had begun gathering near a frosted glass conference room. Their postures were rigid, phones pressed to ears, faces taut with the early signs of panic. Simone returned to her seat, this time by the main window overlooking the tarmac. She didn't check her phone. She didn't look back at Logan. She had already pulled the lever. And the system? The same system that denied her water, erased her name, and flagged her presence had just triggered its own collapse. At exactly 9:42 a.m., the manila folder landed on the glass surface of a conference room inside Orionis Airways' executive suite. The assistant who delivered it barely knew what she was holding, but the moment she whispered, "For Mr. Gareth Whitmore, urgent," the atmosphere in the room shifted. Gareth recognized the name before he even touched the envelope. He didn't open it right away. He looked out through the frosted partition walls and saw her Simone Carter seated by the windows, calm, unmoved, watching nothing and everything at once. Then he opened it. What stared back at him wasn't just a report, it was a reckoning. A 57-page dossier containing time-stamped logs of gate-level behavioral audits pulled from 5 major U.S. terminals, cross-referenced with internal performance reviews, complaint records, and security access overrides, all showing a common thread. A quiet but consistent pattern of profiling, obstruction, and digital marginalization against premium passengers of color. His throat tightened. On page 9 was a still image taken from a gate security feed. Simone's profile, face turned, eyes forward, highlighted beside it, code 37C, special attention, internal. Note, delay, de-escalate. He picked up his phone. "Get legal, now." Outside the room, tension moved like a current through the terminal's upper tier. Executives emerged from elevators, some still on calls, some already reading the forwarded memo Simone's team had pushed through encrypted lines. They knew her name now, and they knew the reach behind it. By 9:51 a.m., The first internal alert appeared across Orionis's crisis response dashboard. Urgent compliance review, Gate C12 passenger interaction flagged. 5 minutes later, regulatory hold issued U.S. Department of Transportation notified. By 10 o'clock a.m., 2 major investment partners had pulled out of pending infrastructure agreements. Another canceled a joint venture meeting set for that afternoon. In total silence, the brand began to bleed. Back at the gate, Logan Pierce was still directing staff, unaware of the chain reaction unraveling behind him. He adjusted his earpiece and motioned to 2 agents near the boarding lane. Then came the whisper, not public, not shouted, just 3 clipped words passed between 2 mid-level supervisors. She triggered it. Within seconds, the boarding monitors across 3 gates began to flicker green, shifting to red, then back. An update flashed briefly and disappeared. Flight 882 operational delay standby adjustment under review. Passengers looked around, puzzled. Agents hesitated. Phones started ringing behind the counters. Inside the executive suite, Gareth was pacing now. His assistant entered the room. "She's filed a notice of breach with the DOT," she said quietly. "We've already been contacted by oversight." "What about press?" he asked. "They haven't reached the media yet." He turned back to the folder. The final page was a cover letter. It was signed by Simone Carter herself. Beneath her name, majority stakeholder Nexus Holdings, strategic equity partner Orionis Airways. She hadn't come to the airport to board. She'd come to pull the plug. Outside, Simone remained seated. She didn't check her phone. She didn't need to. The system was now working against itself, and she had never left her chair. At 10:13 a.m., a sharp buzz cut through the earpiece in Logan Pierce's right ear. "Operations wants you in boardroom B immediately." He frowned, adjusting the wire. "Copy that," he replied, casually, too casually. But the edge in his voice slipped. His assistant, standing nearby, tilted her head. "Everything okay?" "Routine check-in," he lied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Cover me here." Logan walked off toward the secured corridor, posture straight, gait steady. But his hand twitched once at his side, a tremor of something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. He passed the row of frosted glass rooms on the executive level until he reached the last door on the right. Boardroom B, a room almost never used. Last opened during a security scare 2 years ago, now activated for something far more corrosive. He pushed the door open. 3 people sat at the long table. 2 regional directors' faces, hard, unreadable, and a legal counsel from headquarters, her laptop already open, a folder resting beside it marked, "Confidential Carter, C12 Incident." No greetings, no small talk. The woman closest to the head of the table lifted the first page and turned it toward him. "Do you know who Simone Carter is?" Logan gave a dry smirk. "Passenger with a chip on her shoulder. Caused a fuss. We're handling it." Silence. The second director leaned forward, voice quiet but cold. "She's not just a passenger. She's the primary investor behind 3 of our largest strategic contracts. She holds voting shares through Nexus Holdings and veto rights through Horizon Equity." Logan blinked. "She just pulled $615 million in joint capital," the legal counsel added, "and triggered a compliance review with the Department of Transportation. The press has started circling." "That's not," he began, but the first director cut him off. "It already happened, 21 minutes ago." They slid another file across the table. Inside, 24 incident reports, 24 passengers, different airports, different races, same internal tag, code 37C, same assigned staff, same escalation protocol, delay, de-escalate, deny. "You didn't just act on bias," the second director said. "You wrote a playbook around it." Logan's smirk dissolved. The legal counsel opened a slim white envelope and placed it on the table in front of him. "You're being offered 2 options," she said evenly. "Sign this your resignation and a full liability waiver, quietly." She paused. "Or we release your name, your conduct history, and these documents to the media." The room went silent. Logan stared at the envelope like it might detonate. His fingers didn't move. "You have 30 minutes, the first director said, rising. "After that, we assume you prefer option 2. They left without another word. Logan remained seated. For the first time that morning, the walls didn't feel like insulation. They felt like closure. Outside, through the frosted glass, the terminal churned on delays, announcements, the low murmur of operational collapse. But inside the room, time stalled. He looked down at his name badge. He had built the tools to silence people like Simone, and now they were being used to silence him. At 11:26 a.m., a fax was transmitted from a federal contracting office in Washington, D.C. The recipient, Orionis Airways Legal Division. The subject, termination of contract number 218-BR 2021, a 6-year federal agreement valued at $2.1 billion, covering secure military transport, diplomatic charter routes, and emergency logistics for allied governments. The reason? Breach of non-discrimination clauses, pending civil rights violations, failure to meet transparency standards. By 11:44 a.m., the market responded. Orionis stock dropped 18.2% in less than an hour, wiping out nearly $900 million in shareholder value. Board members scrambled to issue statements. Press teams drafted language they couldn't soften. Compliance officers scoured policies that had already failed. Inside Terminal C, the digital screens began to shift one by one. Flight suspended. Administrative hold. Further updates to follow. Gate agents froze mid-check-in. Passengers murmured in confusion. Some took out their phones. Others simply watched the system convulse in silence. Simone didn't move. She sat near Gate D1 now, legs crossed, hands folded over a new leather bag, hand-delivered by a Nexus courier just 20 minutes earlier. Her name no longer appeared on any Orionis manifest. She wasn't boarding their planes anymore. She didn't need to. Across the concourse, an impromptu press conference unfolded. No stage, no cameras, no prepared smiles. Just the CEO of Orionis, Bryce Hammond, standing alone under the harsh light of an emergency conference room. His voice was tight. "For too long," he began, "we've measured success by scale, not ethics. We believed silence could excuse bias. We were wrong." No applause, no reporters shouting questions, just a single broadcast, one admission. "To Ms. Simone Carter," he added, his voice faltering, "on behalf of this institution and the damage it inflicted, I offer not an excuse, but recognition." And that was all. Simone didn't watch the feed. She didn't need to. At 12:03 p.m., she received a message on her secure line: contracts withdrawn, audit files released, CEO acknowledgement complete. She tapped one word in reply: received. There was no interview, no statement to the press, no post to social media. She gathered her things and walked calmly to the boarding area of Gate D1, where a non-Orionis flight to Geneva had just opened its doors. As she stepped into the jet bridge, a young black woman in a flight systems badge whispered, "Ms. Carter, I saw everything." Simone paused, turned gently. The woman nodded. "Because of what you did, I'm staying." Simone returned the nod. No speech, no lesson, just acknowledgement. They boarded together. 6 months later, federal aviation boards issued new discrimination guidelines. TSA protocols added third-party accountability officers. Several airline executives across the industry quietly stepped down. Orionis returned to operations under a new slogan: clear skies, clear conscience. But the words rang hollow in the shadow of what had occurred. Because by then, everyone knew. Simone Carter had never raised her voice. She had simply refused to vanish. And that refusal reshaped everything. In the world of power, silence is often mistaken for submission. But Simone Carter didn't shout. She didn't beg. She didn't need to. She let the system speak for itself through its collapse. What happened at Westbridge International wasn't just about a seat or a gate. It was about how institutions protect bias under the veil of policy, and how those most targeted are expected to endure it quietly. But every system has a breaking point, and sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's underestimated the longest. If this story made you think, share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from, and have you ever witnessed quiet power turn the tide? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more true stories that challenge injustice and remind us that dignity is non-negotiable.